And the contrast on display tonight was so stark. I mean, those lights that are just shooting out from the Lincoln Memorial along the reflecting pool, it's like almost extensions of Joe Biden's arms embracing America. It was a moment where the new president came to town and sort of convened the country in this moment of remembrance, outstretching his arms.
Welcome to the evening edition of the War Room. We're live from the Green Zone in occupied Washington, D.C. We're going to get to more of that in a second. It's Friday, the 22nd of January, the year of our Lord 2021, now with a podcast with over 30 million downloads, one of the biggest in the world, one of the tops in the nation. John Fredericks Radio Network nationwide, Real America's Voice on Dish, on Comcast, every platform out there. We'll get into more of the platforms. We need you as a force multiplier. We're going to go in a second to the border live on our continual coverage of the border crisis 5.0. But I want to turn, first we're honored to have in studio, I think one of the top, obviously with MAGA and everything like that, one of the top, I think, brains in the country, a hedge fund guy, a financier, guy that knows MAGA more than anybody, Steve Cortes. Steve, particularly, we do this open now every day.
Right.
You were at CNN.
I was. 2 years. For
2 years, by the way, it's a kind of a Trump surrogate. You were by far the best. They had some good, but you were by far the best. Jason Miller maybe a second, but you were by far the best. You were, I think, let go because you did a definitive with the Prager Institute, did a definitive report, and we're going to put that up later. By
the way, we don't have to speculate that that's why I was benched. And actually, it was worse than being let go, by the way, by CNN. What they did was they kept me on contract but would not put me on the air. So they were paying me. Now, some people might say, well, it's nice to get paid to do nothing. Well, no, it isn't if you want to be a warrior in this fight.
But
right?
You took Nashville. You took what happened in Charlottesville.
Correct.
What happened in Charlottesville, and you did a Prager University thing that showed it was all lies.
That went bananas, got 6 million views immediately. I think we're up to almost 10 million views now, where we go through the transcript and show that, of course, the president never called racist, bigot, violent people in Charlottesville.
And they benched you right away.
And because of that, and because of the success of it, CNN then benched me. And for 6 months, I couldn't go on television because I was under contract with them, so I couldn't go on anywhere else.
That's it. Suppress the best pro-Trump voice out there. David Chalian, and this is not some Grundoon. When I say Grundoon, I mean like you're an assistant to a craftsman. You're a Grundoon. There's a term at Goldman Sachs. When you first show up to the partners and VPs, you're a Grundoon. They throw you on teams and you do the analysis. So you throw a couple of Grundoons on here. You're always like the low man on the totem pole.
Right.
David Chalian.
No, he's not a Grundoon. This isn't just some random jabroni that just said, got carried away. He is a jabroni, but he's not a random one. He's not somebody who just got carried away with himself on CNN, some random commentator. He is the head, Steve, of politics. He's the director of politics for CNN across platforms, television, digital, everything, international.
He's like Zucker
domestic.
Reports directly to Zucker for the whole, every platform.
I was going to say, because they don't cover anything but politics, okay, I think they should. If they were a legit news network, they would cover other news besides U.S. politics. But because they're so obsessed with it, effectively that means that he, other than Zucker, he's running the network.
The New York Times fired an editor today because she tweeted out that she got chills down her spine seeing Biden's plane line. How has Chalian still got a job?
No,
how does that...
Look, he shouldn't have a job, but this is also why, and we continue to see this in all the polling that comes out, trust in corporate media in this country is collapsing. So it's why shows like yours are exploding, right? While trust in legacy media platforms is collapsing. That's a huge problem for our country, but it's also a massive opportunity, right? For innovative people and organizations like yours. And it's also a challenge, I think, really, to the audience out there. It's a challenge to the deplorables, right? That you can't be lazy. You've got to be engaged. Right. You've got to work to be informed in this country right now. And it certainly isn't going to happen from watching CNN, David Chalian gushing about arms around America.
That's what we play it every day, and people can't get enough of it. Okay, I want to go now. We've got Cortes. Nobody understands the border, immigration, and the economics around the security of it than Steve Cortes, because he can walk through all those counties in the Rio Grande Valley that Trump just blew people away and have people in shock. I want to go now to Ben Bergquam, the great reporter for Real America's Voice on the border down there in San Diego, Tijuana. Ben, you were at the Canyon yesterday, showed us the wall and showed us the problems on the Mexican side. You had some reporting about these caravans. I want to go. You're in Tijuana now. Walk us through exactly where you are. Put us in the room.
I'm actually still on the U.S. side because of the COVID restrictions on coming back. I'm still over here on the U.S. side, but actually you can see right behind me is Mexico. Let me just turn this camera real quick and give you kind of a perspective. That is the Tijuana River right down here beside me. This is the end of the wall in this section. That wall continues down to the port of entry. And this is where raw sewage comes in from Mexico and flows down into America. It flows out into the Pacific Ocean. It's why you can't surf out in the Pacific out here. But the reason this is so important, this is the actual location where last year where we had hundreds of people that had come up from the caravan, rush the border, attack Border Patrol agents, attack American sovereignty. Now we have more of those caravans lining up down in Central America. They were in Guatemala, came up from Honduras, but surprisingly, and I want to give a kudos and shout out to the Guatemalan government, they actually turned them around. Their National Guard stopped them. There were about 6,000, and I think we have some footage of that, 6,000 people coming up from Honduras, these caravans, no papers, no documentation, being brought up, mind you, by leftist American organizations. Al Otro Lado, Pueblo Sin Fronteras, Centro Sin Fronteras, the ACLU, these groups that are telling everybody you have a right to travel anywhere you want. I will say this, though. It's nice what Guatemala is doing, but the solution to this is helping those countries where they're at. The exact reason why these people are fleeing those countries trying to come to America is because of the corruption within their governments, because of the socialist governments that they've created down there. They're globalist, corrupt socialist governments. Now they're trying to come to America, and the same politicians here that want socialism in America are inviting this invasion into our country. Literally right now it is the calm before the storm. This area right here, if the new administration has its way, we're going to see thousands more coming across. Right now as we speak, behind me, there are about 10,000 people that are waiting to cross over just in this area in Tijuana. And it's you add on top of that the end, from what I'm talking to Border Patrol, it's not official yet, but Border Patrol agents have told me that the Remain in Mexico policy is ending. And when that happens, it's going to be a flood across the border. You add on top of that we're not deporting these criminal aliens that have murdered American citizens, that have created angel families. It's out of control.
Ben, hang on for 1 second. I'll bring Cortes in this. I just want to make sure we get the proper thing. Look, this is a tragedy of biblical proportions in Central America. Right? This is not to demonize those people,
Absolutely.
right? And here's, I think, the issue.
Absolutely.
Guatemala should be getting some props now. The Guatemalan, government and the Guatemalan Border Patrol, Cortes has been on top of this. Walk us through what's happened and how this thing kind of got put to bed.
No, listen, this is, and by the way, under President Trump, we got terrific cooperation from Mexico as well as from Central America.
Yep.
So, and that is key for us to note and to congratulate them, right, on doing their jobs. But Ben is exactly right that long term, the economic and social situation and safety situation in those countries has to get good enough that the draw is not so powerful to come to the United States. And by the way, that's not just happy talk, because we have a model, we have a template for doing that, and that country is Colombia.
Yep.
Colombia, when my own father's from Colombia, so when my father left Colombia, it was one of the most violent countries in the entire world. Most of Colombian history is nothing but violence. However, the last couple of decades in Colombia are fantastic about economic growth, about nationalism, about good relations with the United States, robust trade. So it can be done. And particularly if you juxtaposition Colombia with right next door Venezuela, right, they have basically flipped positions, meaning Venezuela used to be the prosperous country. Okay, Colombians wanted to get out.
With the oil.
Right. Now we have the exact inverse, as a matter of fact, where there's a lot of Venezuelan refugees into Colombia. But my point is, Colombia is a template for Honduras, for Guatemala, right, on how to do development right.
Yeah.
And for the fact that, again, this isn't just, a hope and a prayer, that countries can change. You always talk about this. Human agency matters, right?
Yeah.
Policies matter.
Yeah.
So we need to encourage those countries
Absolutely.
to, number one, they're helping us, which is great. But
Yeah.
number two, become Colombia. Become a Latin American success story. That'll be good for them, and clearly it'll be good for the United States.
Ben, I want to go back to you at the border. If we get that shot back up, what is the state of play today? There seems to be some confusion. He sent not an executive order, but he sent a directive, a federal directive about the not shipping back the violent criminals back out. Ken Paxton, we had him on today, Texas. They're already going to court right away to stop that because they said, hey, we can't have this down in Texas. In addition, the word is they're going to stop the stay in Mexico on the asylum issue, which they have thousands there. And the Mexican president, the populist, AMLO, has been very, very supportive of President Trump's work there. So, Ben, what is the state of play, and what is? I want the audience to understand, what are the Border Patrol people that you are talking to telling you?
Well, there's massive concern. As you can imagine, they are concerned about going on camera and talking about it with the new administration and the potential repercussions against them. But major concern in all of the agents that I've spoken to about what's coming. Now, what's interesting is what President Trump set up. With the tariffs that he set up with Mexico, it wasn't just tariffs, it was also incentives. So it was the carrot and the stick. And it was the opportunity to provide more aid to these countries if they were willing to do their part in stopping this inflow. And what's interesting, there was a meeting of security councils today, Guatemala, Mexico, El Salvador, and the U.S. And the weakest on immigration was the U.S., not surprisingly now. But Guatemala stepped up and they said, we are not allowing this anymore. No more mass caravans through our country. It's destroying our economy. And basically what they said is, what we had set up with President Trump was working. With I'm paraphrasing, but it was working. That they were able to stop these people. They were able to provide more for their own community, their own countries, and that's really the saddest part about this is that was all starting to take effect. Where we're actually providing more aid to help these countries rebuild, to help them where they're at, rather than inviting billions of people into our country. And so all of these things were happening. So there's a bit of a dichotomy. Obviously, I think there's a high likelihood that the new administration will remove those tariffs, and if that happens, that's going to de-incentivize Mexico from using its agents to stop the inflow. But I think there was some awakening within Guatemala and these Central American countries.
Well,
and
not so much in Honduras. They're actually
Ben,
fighting back against.
I'm glad you used the word awakening, because of course there's an awakening on our side of the border as well, right? We've talked a lot about the incredible success.
Yep.
I mean, literally just seismic shifts from 2016 to 2020 for Trump in these border counties, in these gritty, blue-collar, Hispanic counties. I talk a lot about Starr County, 96% Hispanic, most Hispanic county in America. We gained 55% on margin. We didn't quite win it, but we lost it by 60% last time, only 5% this time. Right next door is Zapata County, 86% Hispanic. We did win it. We won it by 5%, 38% improvement on margin. And it's not just a Texas issue either. If we go over to California, and is Imperial County, which is to the east of San Diego, again, a very blue-collar, working class place, Imperial County. We didn't win Imperial County, but we gained 10 percentage points on margin. And by the way, I think one of the reasons, Steve, this is why border security, one of the many reasons why border security is important, wages year over year, during the pandemic year, okay, from November of 2019 to November of 2020, in Imperial County, Texas, we gained 10% on margin. Those workers gained 10% in their wages year over year. 10% wage growth in 1 year is astounding in the United States. We just don't see those kinds of numbers very often, but particularly in the face of the China virus, in the face of a pandemic. So my point is that border security isn't just good for the overall security of the United States and for our sovereignty. It's also good for the bottom line. It means more pay in the pockets of blue-collar people who rallied to President Trump in seismic numbers again. And I think the Democrats know this, and they are incredibly fearful of it.
Ben, real quickly, you got about 20 seconds. You're going to be reporting over the weekend for Real America's Voice down there on the border?
I'm actually heading back up today, but I'll be back down next week. We're going to be doing a trip down in possibly into Guatemala and Honduras to follow up on that. So I'll be down here often, though. As this continues to unfold, we'll be bringing it to you.
Ben Bergquam, Real America's Voice. Okay, this is Stephen K. Bannon. We've got Steve Cortes. We're going to have Peter Navarro join us in a little while. Take a short commercial break. We're going to return and get Cortez's thoughts on exactly where we stand with the Biden administration coming out of the gates. All next on War and Pandemic.
War Room Pandemic with Stephen K. Bannon.
The epidemic is a demon, and we cannot let this demon hide.
War Room Pandemic. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
Okay, welcome back. There's a slight technical problem. We're trying to work that out with Denver. Make sure the main feed is up. But we had Ben Bergquam did a great report from the border. Cortes, before we get to the overall Biden thing, let's put the border in perspective. This is a fight that's been going on now for decades, right? The globalists don't want it. But here's the power, and I want to go back to what you just said. The MAGA movement, blue-collar Hispanics, working-class Hispanics that are already culturally conservative, now understand that we're preaching the gospel of the strivers. We're
Right.
preaching the gospel of you're going to have lower unemployment, higher wages. We support you, African American males. We see, high value added jobs. The polling shows that the Hispanics understand that bringing jobs back from China, bringing high value manufacturing jobs back from China is central to the economic well-being.
Steve, for decades, Republicans' idea of trying to broaden the tent, particularly when it came to minorities, was presenting some sort of Democrat-light platform to them, right, to pander to them. It's ridiculous. It doesn't work. What does work is actual hardcore economic nationalism. So those border regions and those blue-collar Hispanics who live on the border, I really think that they've rallied to us, I think, for three reasons. One is border security, which is crucial to them. And by the way, Customs and Border Patrol, the brave men and women who protect our country, majority Hispanic agency, the most Hispanic agency of the federal government. The second thing then, economic nationalism, right? Toughness in trade, free and entrepreneurial zeal for all Americans, but it's particularly impactful for Hispanics because we are, statistically speaking, by far the most entrepreneurial demographic in America. It's a real strength of our people culturally. And then thirdly, you mentioned it, religious liberty. This is crucial. And this isn't just a stereotype. Hispanics, by polling, if you look at Pew Research, for example, Hispanics are 17% more pro-life, for example, than are white Americans, than are Anglo-Americans. That's significant. I mean, you know enough about polling to know that 17% is a Grand Canyon-sized gap. And when Hispanics, whether they're evangelicals or Catholics, when Hispanic Christian folks see that Joe Biden wants to attack again, and he's going to, the Little Sisters of the Poor, those wonderful holy women, when they see his attacks upon religious liberty, and I know we're going to talk about this is the very sad and unfortunate anniversary of Roe v. Wade, those Hispanics then, for those reasons, border security, economic nationalism, which includes entrepreneurial zeal, and then the third reason, religious liberty. Those three factors are attracting Hispanics, African Americans, working class whites. That's why our tent is broadening so significantly, and why, even though it's a disaster that we swore in, unfortunately, an illegal and illegitimate president of the United States, I'm so optimistic about the future of our movement because the movement is making such gains.
Look, Rasmussen has him at 48%, but I want to go to the 48th anniversary of Roe v. Wade, plus the attack coming from the very start on young girls and women's sports.
Yeah.
By the way, they want unity when you do like David Chalian and get Biden's arms around you and you agree with them. They want unity on their projects, and they understand something. They start the nullification project the first day of the resistance. We will never submit to what they want to do. It will not happen, okay? I want to take both the 40th anniversary of Roe plus the attack on little girl sports.
You bet. So, 40th anniversary, very sad anniversary of Roe v. Wade. I would encourage people, by the way, if you want to look at the legal framework of it, not so much the moral framework, but the dissent by Byron White, by Whizzer White, is incredible. I mean, it really is. By the way, he's one of the most incredible people in American history. Runner-up for the Heisman, first-round NFL draft choice, and a Rhodes Scholar. Okay? I mean, talk about a man of, a Renaissance man.
And a Kennedy pick, a Democrat pick on the court.
Yes. He wrote an amazing dissent in Roe v. Wade. But it's a sad day for our country, and again, even aside from the crucial moral aspect of it, from the legal aspect, the Supreme Court invented a right out of whole cloth. It invented a constitutional right that did not exist
from the Commerce Clause, right?
Yeah, well, partly, and then also from the 14th Amendment, substantive due process, right, which they claimed. Which, by the way, we know historically, and Rehnquist wrote the other dissent, and Rehnquist in his dissent said, we know that for reasons of history, the 14th Amendment was not applicable to this new idea of substantive due process because when the 14th Amendment was passed in, I believe, 1868. But when it was passed, 36 states had anti-abortion laws, and there was zero talk about that applying to abortion law. But in any case, it's. I think here's why it's important, even beyond that critical issue of abortion, is it gets to this idea of the permanent political class in Washington, D.C., believing that it can operate in an extra-constitutional way. And that could be the court, that can be the Congress, and it can certainly be Joe Biden. And then, by the way, to get to something far more recent, literally hours old now, this ludicrous directive, this executive order from President Biden, and I hate to even say that term, but from Joe Biden, literally targeting girls' sports in a way that would have been unthinkable even just a few years ago. Women in sports, women and girls in sports have made such progress for decades, right? I mean,
it's changed American society.
Just in my life, right? When I was a kid, Steve, at my parish growing up, the boys played basketball and the girls' option was to cheerlead for the boys playing basketball. That was it, right? How different the world is right now, and how different for our daughters, for example. And Joe Biden is literally telling all of America that your daughters, your sisters, they are going to have to compete against boys in sports if a boy feels like he wants to try to compete for a scholarship on a girls' squad, and that boy has the right to go into their locker room. I mean, this is one of these 80-20 or 90-10 type of issues, Steve, where literally outside of faculty lounges and Marin County, California, nobody agrees that this is a good idea, that it's a good idea to force schools, and this is every school that gets federal aid, and Steve, most schools get some form of federal aid. Even a lot of private schools get some form of federal aid. So this is one of those 80-20 or 90-10.
This is an angle of attack that we're going to get to in a second. I want to go to another one. Cortes, you're a pretty even-handed, level-headed guy. You came into Washington, D.C. today to do this show, some other shows, Talk to Real America Voice. You're going to do Newsmax tomorrow night. You're going to host at 8 to 10 p.m. on Newsmax. Be Steve Cortes. Talk to me about when you first got here. And we say the green zone every day. People think we're kidding. Walk us through it.
I have to tell you, Steve, and I am. I pride myself on being a happy warrior, on being very level-headed. It's pretty dispiriting. And I want to tell that to most of America who's not going to get here physically to Washington, D.C. This is an armed encampment right now. It really is. And for no good reason, right? There is no threat here right now. There is no threat in Washington, D.C. to justify anything like this. If you were to be dropped from outer space into Washington, D.C. right now, you would guess that the United States is being invaded. I mean, it's that level of troops, of walls. By the way, they suddenly believe in walls. How about that? I mean, how about, for example, the White House, established a very, very wide perimeter, massive walls, massive concrete barriers. And suddenly, walls are important. Barbed wire everywhere, troop transports all over the place. It's an unsettling and, in my view, totally inappropriate scene right now in Washington,
You've been
DC.
watching. We've been in the middle of. You've been watching mainstream media. Has the media shown America what is going on here?
Absolutely not, and not even sort of somewhat conservative media. Again, folks, I'm trying to tell you, I haven't seen it today for the first time. It's unsettling. It is not right. And by the way, I think a lot of people, thankfully, now know the story about the mistreatment of some of these guardsmen who are doing this duty, about how they were sleeping literally in a cold parking garage, lack of bathrooms, all of that. Today, in the press conference of Jen Psaki at the White House, not one question. Speaking of the media and dereliction of duty and media malfeasance, not one question. And by the way, to try to have some fun with a terrible situation, the Babylon Bee, which is one of my favorite satire websites out there, they said that Biden's message to those guardsmen is going to be, please be patient while you're sleeping outside, because very soon I'm going to send you back to war in the Middle East, which unfortunately might be the truth.
Let's go. Talking about Biden overall, you've seen the numbers from Rasmussen. You see that he has almost no political capital. That's tied. It's 4 or 5 votes.
Right.
The Senate is tied. This radical agenda, because it's not the sleepy guys at the top. They got these boring guys at the heads of the agencies that they're all trying to get through. And the Republicans are doing a terrible job in the confirmation hearing, not lighting guys up, not asking tough questions, not holding people like Blinken accountable. But it's the second and third tier that are the radicals. These are radicals that run these agencies to do the work. Where do you think we are with Biden in the counterattack to stop this where it is?
Well, listen, because of the very radical moves of Biden right out of the gate, the girls' sports being one of them, canceling the Keystone XL pipeline, another one. So, by the way, the president takes exactly the wrong approach, the new president, to the border. He doesn't want Canadian energy, which we need and want, to come over the northern border, but he does want trespassers to come over the southern border and is incentivizing them to do so. He's got exactly the wrong approach to borders. But given the radical moves that he's already making, I believe he is very vulnerable if the Republicans in the United States Senate can man up. And here's where they really need to fight. And I think this is critical, Steve, because while we still have the filibuster, and look, maybe the filibuster doesn't go away, but that's not a given, okay? So while we have the filibuster, if I can channel Frankie Pentangeli from Godfather 2, if you remember when he's talking to Michael Corleone, he says, let's hit him now while we still have the muscle, okay? So while we still have the muscle of the filibuster, the Republicans in the Senate must stand up on immigration. To me, this is the consequential issue. When I was last on your show remotely, I made the point to you of, because we're out of power now and we're the opposition, we can't fight every issue. We can't. Right. We've got to be judicious, okay? And we can't.
You can't chase rabbits. You can't chase the noise. You got to go for the signal. Where's the signal?
And the signal is immigration. This is where we have to hold the line, where we have to say, you are not going to effectively move this country to open borders. You have already suspended all deportations for 100 days. You're already offering generous incentives for illegals, for trespassers to come into our country, to break and enter into the United States, jeopardizing our security and our economy. We are going to hold the line on immigration.
When we hold the line, those hardworking, blue-collar, Hispanic families, down in the Rio Grande Valley, in Imperial County, right? These hardworking, tough places, right?
Right.
How do we enlist them into our cause to say, hey, look, we're fighting for you.
Right.
The border security is yours and the jobs. How do we do that?
Because if we do it, if the Senate holds the line, what I think then needs to happen next, and nobody can do this better than President Trump, then we need to go. We need to have rallies. We need to have events. We need to go to the border. People like me need to go to the border and do broadcasting from there. That, I believe, will be crucial. But none of that matters unless we hold the line first on immigration. I believe personally, by the way, that the Republicans should agree to a generous COVID package. Don't fight there. That's noise. It's going to pass regardless, okay? Let's get people who need it the aid they need, but then let's absolutely hold the line on immigration
Real quickly,
and protect our workers.
Stivers today, one of the top guys in the House, said the Republicans would support $1,400 if he took the vaccine. What are your thoughts?
No, we can look. Economic aid can never be dependent on forcing people to take a vaccine if they are not comfortable taking it. That is a ludicrous violation of rights, and the Republicans absolutely cannot.
And you're not an anti-vaxxer. You're just saying
no,
you
I'm
can't
not an
time.
anti-vaxxer, but listen,
Yeah.
but there's a lot of really, really committed
Understand.
people who have strong reasons to not take it or to not give it to their children, and we have to be respectful of that.
We're going to take a short commercial break. Peter Navarro is going to join us. We're going to play a cold open with Fauci. We're going to get Steve Cortes in the conversation. We're going to continue on COVID, which is one of the driving elements of the Biden administration. We'll be back with Tony Fauci and Peter Navarro next.
War Room Pandemic with Stephen K. Bannon.
The epidemic is a demon, and we cannot let this demon hide.
War Room Pandemic. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
So the White House released its new coronavirus strategy yesterday, and they came out with this 21-page summary of it. And the number one goal of the new Biden White House in terms of battling the pandemic is to restore trust with the American people. Why is it necessary to say that?
Well, I think that was really good making that number one, because what we've had, John, there's no secret. We've had a lot of divisiveness. We've had facts that were very, very clear, that were questioned. People were not trusting what health officials were saying. There was great divisiveness. Masking became a political issue. So what the president was saying right from the get-go, let's reset this. Let's everybody get on the same page, trust each other, let the science speak. And he said that multiple times, not only before the cameras. He said it to us in the meeting that we had in the White House yesterday, right before I went into the press conference. Just that. It's got to be science is driving what we're doing. John, that's what I've been saying with you every time I've been on the program here. If we can do that, get people to trust in each other, that we're all in this together. Forget the divisiveness. We have a serious opponent here. The president made the analogy of a war. Yeah, I mean, if you look at the numbers, over 400,000 people dead, that's quite comparable to World War II. I mean, that's the reason why we've really got to restore trust and restore a unified approach.
Did the lack of candor, did the lack of facts in some cases over the last year cost lives?
It very likely did. I don't want that, John, to be a soundbite, but I think if you just look at that, you could see that when you're starting to go down paths that are not based on any science at all, and we've been there before, I don't want to rehash it, that is not helpful at all. And particularly when you're in the situation of almost being in a crisis with the number of cases and hospitalizations and deaths that we have, when you start talking about things that make no sense medically and no sense scientifically, that clearly is not helpful.
That is a pathological liar. A year ago this weekend, and we're going to have we started this show, War Room Pandemic. We took an hour out of the impeachment show and started War Room Pandemic. Everybody laughed us. John Catsimatidis owns WABC, said, "What are you making a big deal? Why is your hair on fire, Bannon?" And I said, because it's going to be the biggest thing in human history, current human history. He says, I know a guy from the Clinton administration. I'll put him on, Tony Fauci, on his radio show on the 23rd of January, I think it was, on his Sunday show. Fauci's quoted, it was on the Hill, America has nothing to worry about. This is nothing. America has nothing to worry about. He has gotten it wrong from the beginning. He is a con artist. He's a shill. And to have him sit there, I don't want a soundbite. That's a lie right there. Of course he knew it was a soundbite. What he is he's a media hack. I want to bring in now a guy who was in the room and can call him a liar because he's in the room with him and the pathological lies that he has told from the beginning. I want to bring in Dr. Peter Navarro to Tony Fauci. This is a very bad guy. He's a dangerous guy. And I hope on this one, the Biden administration realizes immediately this guy is a hack. He's a spin artist, and he will get them in trouble, okay, because he's a hack. Dr. Navarro.
So I don't know which word Fauci's definitely worse, but John Berman's no piece of cake either. I mean, between the two of those, they've got blood on their hands. And I'm going to make the case here. I want to start with folks, this is the China Bioweapons Lab, a.k.a. the Wuhan Institute of Virology. And I'm going to come back to this, but the Dr. Fauci actually used your taxpayer dollars to help fund this thing and do what they call gain of function research. But before I go there, I'm going to run through four time zones here and show you something. So the first thing is we've got January 28th. We'll set the scene. I'm in the Situation Room. I'm down in the Situation Room at the request of the president, and he wants me to convince the task force that the China travel ban will save lives and it's the right thing to do. And the guy I fought the most that day, not the only one, but the guy I fought the most that day was Tony Fauci. He was adamantly opposed to the travel ban, along with Redfield at the CDC, Mulvaney down at the end of the table, Began over at State. But Fauci was the guy that everybody was turning to like he was the expert. If Biden had been president and he had Fauci as his guy, he probably would have listened to Fauci. And you know what? There'd probably be 1 million more Americans dead because of Tony Fauci, blood on his hands. All right, let's go to February 2020. This is an homage to the, sorry, Tony, but that was the worst opening day pitch I've ever seen. But I wrote a memo on February 9th, again at the behest of the president. And in that memo, I urged the coronavirus task force basically to move forward with all due speed to fund Operation Warp Speed. Predicted in that memo very clearly that we would have a vaccine by the end of November. You know what happened then, Steve? Fauci got on television and with Maggie Haberman ripped me a new one saying, and his claim was that we couldn't have that vaccine for at least 2 years. Well, guess what? We got it in November. If Fauci had been in charge with Joe Biden, we wouldn't have that vaccine and there'd be a lot of people in trouble here. So let's go to the next time and space here. Yes. Why is that expletive deleted guy smiling there? It's March of 2020, and he tells 60 Minutes, which they don't have the audience they used to have, but it's still pretty big. We don't need to wear masks. Now, the other Fauci said we do, and that kills people if you don't. So, Tony, please make up your mind. And then finally, yes, Fauci funds in 2019 the Wuhan Institute of Virology, and most importantly, he approves this thing called gain of function. Steve, you and I have talked about this. Gain of function.
But hang on. I want to get the time frame right. He approved the gain of function. Experiments start again in December of 2017. It was 2019, I think, when he started actually funding the experiments themselves. So 2017 for the approval.
Correct. So basically you have a situation. There is a significant probability that this Chinese Communist Party virus that is killing hundreds of thousands of Americans was actually not only funded by Tony Fauci and his institute, but also he was one of the guys that approved the experiment that may well have led to, if Dr. Yan is correct, a genetically engineered bioweapon killing millions around the world. So, Joe Biden.
Peter, hang on. Whoa, hang on for a second. Yeah. This is not Dr. Yan. She's the first one that told us. That's where she left Hong Kong. Correct me if I'm wrong. It's the United States State Department, Cortes, putting out last week, Friday, a week ago, 1 week ago, a compilation of the IC things, and we know from the great reporting in Australia by Sherry Marcus and others that the Five Eyes program has said that the PLA runs the lab and this came out of a bioweapons program. And now you get the State Department saying that. It's not just Dr. Yan. This has now moved up to the next level. So this is where Fauci's going to have questions. He's going to have to answer. The media's been covering for him. We're going to peel this back a layer at a time and show you his responsibility, and hopefully Biden in that crowd will hold this guy accountable and get rid of him, because he's a dangerous, dangerous individual. The moving the goalposts, and that's why I think
he's a dangerous man.
Why is he? And I want from you, why is he dangerous?
Steve, because the public trusts him, despite the fact that over the course of this pandemic and prior to that, he put in motion all sorts of things that are killing Americans. And here's the thing, Steve. The Never Trump, anti-Trump media, from the get-go of this pandemic, the whole game was the blame game. Blame Donald Trump for the pandemic. And so Fauci always got a free ride. They kind of would set Fauci up to basically be the good guy, the truth sayer. And then all of us and the rest of the administration were the bad guys, when in fact it was just the opposite. I just went through that. I mean, Tony Fauci, if Tony Fauci had been Joe Biden's advisor in January 2020 and Biden had been president, 1 million more Americans would have been dead, because Fauci would have convinced Biden not to do a China travel ban, and Biden, because he trusts Fauci,
and a quarantine,
he shouldn't, would have done it. I mean, look, this guy is a clown.
Okay, hang on a second. I want Cortes.
That baseball game was a metaphor for what he represents. He can't shoot straight. He doesn't talk straight. Cortes,
take it.
Let's hear you, brother.
Yeah. No, and to that point of why is he so dangerous, Peter, I think another reason is because, to your point, unfortunately, most of America does trust him because of the way he's been lionized by corporate media. That's why it's so important for us to look at his actual track record, right? And let's use the actual receipts, not sloganeering or opinions, and you've done a great job of it. I'll tell you another one. He was on the Today Show on February 29th, okay? Mm-hmm. You had already now been on the case for over a month, you here at War Room, Steve Bannon. But on February 29th, he's on the Today Show to a massive national audience. Here's what he said, quote, "Right now, at this moment, there is no need to change anything that you're doing on a day-to-day basis. Anything you're doing on a day-to-day basis." He continued, he said, "The risk is low." That's what he said on February 29th. Literally days later, perhaps even hours later, he was advocating for a national shutdown, which then happened by the middle of March. But just to show you, and look, lots of people get things wrong, okay? I'm not saying that there's any scientist out there who has a perfect track record. But my point is...
Not that many things wrong.
Correct. But my point is... No, exactly. My point is, because he has been given an air of infallibility by the corporate media, it's really important for us to show just how fundamentally wrong he has been on a continual basis, and how much he yearns for camera time. And by the way, I say this as a TV guy, okay? I can recognize it when I see it, this camera lust. And that's what he has. Camera lust most of the time is just silly and it's not dangerous. When it's camera lust from him, from Fauci, it's downright dangerous for a country.
Navarro, we got about a minute before we got to go to break, and I'm going to get Cortes out the break. But in a minute, tell us, they're saying they got a whole new plan. He's got 28 pages he's holding up. What is really the difference in what Biden's doing and then what you guys and the president were doing with the task force? What is the fundamental big differences here?
I haven't seen a single thing that they're going to do different. They appointed a policy coordinator, which basically we already had. They're talking about using the Defense Production Act, which we used over 100 times to get the supply chain going. And what they didn't understand is that we could use it sparingly because he's really scared that we would use it. Right. So they came along patriotically. I'm not seeing it. And, they're talking about the supply chains for the vaccines. I'm telling you, the biggest thing that I would do right now if I was still with Donald J. Trump in the White House is cracking down on Pfizer, basically to stop selling a vaccine that we paid them to develop to everywhere else but here in America. So it's all talk, no walk at this point. They've got their hands full. And I'm telling you, Joe Biden, if you want Tony Fauci, you got him. But he's going to kill Americans because he's already done it.
Okay, we're going to take a short commercial break. When we return, I want to drill down on one more thing of this. I want to talk about the economic package with Navarro. But I also want to say, what are they doing? They're making a big deal about the distribution thing was all messed up. Time Magazine had the cover, right? The Oval Office. What is the difference in their distribution strategy and what President Trump have? We're going to take a short commercial break. We're going to turn with Steve Cortes, Dr. Peter Navarro in the War Room.
War Room Pandemic with Stephen K. Bannon.
The epidemic is a demon, and we cannot let this demon hide.
War Room Pandemic. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
Okay, Dr. Navarro, we're pressed for time, but just real quickly, they're making a huge deal that you guys totally screwed up the distribution of this. They got a whole new plan. As you see it right now, what is the difference between what you and President Trump are doing and what Biden is talking about doing right now on distribution of the vaccine?
I think you're going to screw it up. I mean, we relied on a combination of the force of government, but also the power of the free market. And what they're going to do is impose top-down command and control. And when you do that, you take away kind of the genius market forces of the hospitals, the doctors, the distributors, which are a key player in our healthcare system, and our state distribution centers. So good luck, Joe.
Peter, are they going? Peter, hang on, Peter. Are they going to bring in? Let's cut to the chase. Are they going to bring in the military, the National Guard, Army Reserve to actually distribute this vaccine, or are they not? In your best thinking?
I think that would be a very dangerous thing to do. But by the way, if they do, give them a few more porta potties, please.
Okay,
You get my drift. They're treating the National Guard here awful in the war zone here, the green zone.
Okay, I want to turn now to
Shame on them.
I want to turn to Cortes and get back to Navarro about the economy in this COVID bill. Talk to me your best thoughts of the economy right now, Cortes.
I am extremely worried. We look at the numbers for November and December and the few numbers we're getting for January that this economy is decelerating in a significant way. We had incredible momentum from the spring lockdown lows from March and April into October. Peter Navarro and I talked so much about it, about not just a V, but a super V economic recovery, whether it was wages, pickup truck shipments, retail sales, you name it. Peter, I worry that all of that is reversing right now and reversing hard when I look at the economic data. For example, retail sales, dreadful number for December, bad number for November. We're seeing the same kind of deceleration in jobs. Here's my question to you. I think a lot of this is politically driven. I think it's a combination of Donald Trump losing the election. I mean, losing in quotes, but let's face it, he's not president anymore. And then I also think it's the lack of a COVID package, a lack of cash on the barrel, cash assistance
So
to
the Democrats,
Americans.
okay, to your point, though, Navarro, answer the question. The Democrats saying, hey, the reason the deceleration is Peter Navarro and Donald J. Trump. It's their fault, and we got to turn around. What say you, sir?
Of course they're going to say that, but the reason is Nancy Pelosi made a calculated gamble with the American people, American worker, that if she did not give Donald Trump a fiscal stimulus relief bill before Election Day, they'd win. Okay, but the cost of that, and this is Steve, this is irreversible. The Steves, it's irreversible. Small business, that's the heart and soul of the engine of this economy, and they put tens of thousands of small businesses out of businesses forever. And at this point, whatever they do now is going to be too little, too late.
And Steve,
so
to
we're
that
heading
point,
into a cul-de-sac in 2021.
To put some data on that, National Federation of Independent Business, biggest group for small business in America, as well as CNBC Small Business Survey that they do, both of them turned around massively November and December. The animal spirits, the dynamism of entrepreneurial America has turned around in a massive way. I think a lot of it is because negatively turned around. And I think a lot of that is because we don't have Donald Trump as president anymore. I mean, I really believe that. Your thoughts?
No. But Navarro, one other thing.
Steve, the other thing, if I may, the other thing that's coming here, okay, you can do your stimulus all you want, but the other thing that's going to come is basically they're going to unwind everything, the deregulation, the tax cuts, the cheap energy,
and entrepreneurs know that,
and the fair trade, and the defense spending, okay? All of that was what got us over the 2% GDP.
But hang on a second. Navarro, you're sitting there blaming Nancy Pelosi nonstop. Didn't Mitch McConnell have something to do with stop? Where Mitch McConnell? Didn't he say
minority Mitch?
Why didn't? By the way, did we not lose Georgia? They're blaming Trump. We lost Georgia because they got $600 instead of the other 14 or 2,000. What the Republican establishment has? What blame do they get, Navarro?
You're absolutely right. It was McConnell, and we sent a negotiating team in Meadows and Mnuchin that really weren't able to harness that twin beast. And the thing about it is, the sad part here is Donald J. Trump wanted a $2 trillion deal. He wanted it a full 90 days, 120 days before Election Day, and he just couldn't get anybody to impose his will up on the Hill because Nancy didn't want to do it for one reason. Mitch, that guy is just out of touch with the common worker in America. He's not MAGA. He's out to get Trump. Yeah, go ahead and blame Mitch as well. But Nancy Pelosi is the one who stuck the heart in small business. It was her.
Okay, we're going to do a lot more on this in the days and weeks ahead. These are the two brightest guys in the room in the MAGA movement. I want to now go to Boca Raton, Florida. Karyn Turk. Karyn Turk, live in Boca Raton. There's a rally tomorrow to support MyPillow and the CEO, Mike Lindell. They're coming at him because he's in the MAGA movement. He's defending President Trump. He's saying that this election was stolen. It's got to be looked at. They're all over his business, from the Daily Mail, every news source in the world, the Democratic Party, all the leftists, the source-back guys, trying to destroy him personally and his company. Karyn Turk in Boca Raton. What's going to happen tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock in front of the Bed, Bath, and Beyond?
Well, we got Mike Lindell's back, and we got the back of every conservative that's being censored and silenced by big tech, and that's exactly what's happening here at Bed Bath & Beyond. And we're going to go out, we're going to protest, we're going to peacefully protest, we're going to rally at 1400 Glades Road in Boca, which is the Bed Bath & Beyond that's just east of 95 across from FAU. There's going to be a lot of great patriots out there in support of freedom, and most of all, in support of free speech. Because once we allow big tech to grab the arms of these big box retailers and start to censor and ban products, we have a real problem with constitutional rights. And that's why I'm going to be out there, and a lot of us are going to be out there protesting tomorrow.
So once again, Karyn Turk, how do people get access to you? What are your coordinates? With Facebook, give us everything people need to get there and how they're going to get there. It's 10 o'clock tomorrow morning. We're going to start the 10 o'clock. We're going to start the morning show live from Boca, from the Bed Bath & Beyond. But Karyn, one more time, how do people get access to where you're going to be?
Thank you so much. There is a Facebook group, as long as they don't shut us down. It's called Stop the Censorship. Again, it's going to be at Bed Bath & Beyond at 1400 Glades Road, just east of 95 across from FAU. And you can reach me on Instagram at Mrs. Florida 2016. I'm everywhere else as Karyn, Karyn, Turk, Turk. Find me all over social media. The event is posted everywhere. You can just Google it. Stop the Censorship, Mrs. Florida. It'll pop right up. Please join me tomorrow at 10 a.m. This is really important.
Okay, we're going to be live from there tomorrow. I want everybody in the War Room Posse right now to go there. Show your support. We're going to be live to support Mike Lindell, the MyPillow CEO, and his epic fight against censorship and shutting down and deplatforming these businesses. Karyn, you're a patriot. Peter Navarro, you're wonderful. Your Jimmy Stewart routine. Cortes, you're the best. I don't know. You and Navarro are a coin flip. We got the two biggest brains in the MAGA movement, Cortes and Navarro. Thank you. See you tomorrow morning, 10 o'clock. We're going to have a great show starting in Boca.